Gentlemen, welcome to the Be the Man podcast. I am your host, Greg Denning, the creator, coach, and founder of the Be the Man Masterclass and Tribe. And got to share some exciting news. I'm sharing recently. I'm going to keep reminding you the new Be the Man app is out. It is available. We've got tons of great resources on there. Go check that out. There's audio recordings, video recordings, all kinds of great content. And well, in the advanced part, once you get in the masterclass, it actually has the communities all built in there, and there's habit tracking systems built in. It is awesome. So today, gentlemen, I'm going to talk about the law of exponential returns and versus linear returns, and see how that plays out in our life. And as you get older and you experience more life, once you start to notice this and recognize the pattern, you'll see it appear in so many areas of life and so many lives around you. And you'll see it play out in your life. And the challenge is that most of us don't think exponentially. In fact, let's be honest, right? Most of us probably don't even think linearly. We're just thinking about, what's going on. We're taking care of what's immediate, what's right in front of us. And right, that's normal. It's natural. We're dealing with what's urgent. And who was it? 7 Habits for Highly Effective People. Stephen Covey, that's who it is. So Stephen Covey, years ago, many, many years ago, talked about that quadrant, right? How we're dealing with things that are urgent, that are right in front of us, but not necessarily important. And the more roles we have, like a husband and a father and a businessman, a leader, a disciple, a friend, a brother, a son, whatever it is, the more roles we have, the more we have going on in our lives, the more urgent things there are, and the more that pops up in front of us constantly. Some of you feel like you're firefighters, right? And not for a living. Now you're not actually putting out real fires. You're just constantly putting out fires, so to speak, in your lives, in all the areas of your life. And you're doing this and doing that and doing this and doing that. And it's actually pretty rare for men to slow down and to look at their lives in the context of the long game, of how this is playing out in the long term, and how what we're doing, everything you're doing. I guess here's where we think about it too. Sometimes we just kind of dismiss something we're doing as though it doesn't play into our outcome, as though this piece won't really have that much effect as it compounds. And so you see it and you notice it, you're like, oh, well, no big deal, because it doesn't seem to make a big deal right now. It's just kind of playing out linearly, and it's really subtle. And so as you're looking at it, it's not that big of a deal. And so it doesn't fit into this equation of like, man, if I keep doing this for the next 10 years or 20 years or 30 or 40 years, how many of you sit down and think, man, if I keep doing what I did today for 40 years, that's going to have a serious effect, right? And it's not very often that we think through that. And yet today, that's exactly what I want to do, is to invite you to look at everything you're doing and carefully consider its compound effect and the exponential effect, right? That law of exponential results, that when they compound, they either do it for us or against us. And so if you can picture in your mind, you've got two lines going along side by side. And they're running horizontal. And the one on top will say is the good line, and the one on the bottom is the bad, right? We'll just call it bad. That's anything that ultimately will have a negative effect in our lives. And they're going along, and as the years pass, they get a slight divergence, just barely. It's barely noticeable. But they can go along for years. And so you're seeing these two lines, and it might be aspects of your life, or it might be your life and somebody else near you, or they're looking at you or you're looking at them, and as you're going along, you don't see that much of a difference. And this could be on the positive or the negative. You might go along and think, man, I'm putting in all this good work, I'm doing all these good things, I'm cranking out these habits, and okay, a little bit of difference, but not much. Is it really worth all this work and effort and, tight schedule and discipline, is it really worth it? Because then you might look across at somebody else and be like, man, they eat quite a bit of junk food, and they're watching a lot more games and TV and just chilling and relaxing, and they're taking it easy all the time. And they seem to be doing all right, right? And so you're going along, and it seems so subtle. It seems like the separation, the gap, the difference isn't that significant. And maybe it's not. But once it starts to compound, things get crazy. You've heard the little analogy, the little story about the penny, right? You double a penny every day, and you get for a month, right? You do it for a month, and you get quite a ways into the month, and you're like, that's still nothing. Okay, so I went from 16,000 to 32,000 or whatever. But it's once you get to the end that doubling starts to have a massive impact. And it's true in so many aspects of life with this law of exponential returns and results, that as you get closer to that moment of turn, it's where you can picture it in your mind now, whether it's 10 years or 20 years or 30 years, what happens is you can see the lines gradually separating a little bit as they go along, but they're still pretty horizontal. And then you get to this point where the top one, the good one, shoots upward drastically, almost completely vertically, and the bottom one shoots to the bottom almost vertically and just drops off. That's that moment when everything goes well or everything goes wrong. And it starts to pile on top of it. It really gets dramatic and intense. I know you've seen it before, and maybe you've already gone through it in your mind and seen it as as the exponential effect. But maybe you've noticed it in your life and in your own life where everything seems to be going well, and you're getting this huge payoff for the habits and patterns, or maybe everything seems to start going wrong, and it all starts falling apart. And we're going to get into very specific examples here, so it makes sense. But kind of scan through your life or people it might be your parents or siblings or neighbors or friends or colleagues. You see them kind of going along, and then everything starts to really work in their favor, or everything seems to start crumbling and falling apart. I mean, you could use termites, for example, or a weak foundation, right? It just starts eroding away. I've told the story in the other podcast that I did, the Extraordinary Family Life podcast. I told the story. We were living in Costa Rica, and we went exploring, and there was this beautiful home, all made of wood. It was gorgeous. It kind of looked like the Millennial Falcon and overlooking the ocean. It was spectacular, and there was one huge tree trunk in the middle of the house holding up the whole thing. So there's this circular, almost like you could see it like a circus tent, right? That one pole in the middle holding up the whole roof. And I go into the house, and the floorboards were all kind of rotted, and the walls, it was a little sketch. So I'm going through very carefully, not wanting to fall through, because we stepped on a board and it went right through. And I realized it was termites. I'm like, man, what a tragedy. This gorgeous house has just been destroyed. And I learned about history later. The family lived over in Europe, and they'd come over every once in a while, and they didn't ask anyone to take care of it or watch out or spray for it or keep the termites. And they're like, no, not that big of a deal. But the termites just kept eating and reproducing and eating and reproducing and eating and reproducing until they quite literally consumed this entire house. At one point, I lost my balance a little bit and stepped over, and I put my hand on the wall, and it just went through the wall. I was like, this is insane. So then I wanted to kind of explore the house and check it out as a cool thing. And so I'm walking up the staircase around that main tree trunk, and I reached out just to kind of steady myself, and my fingers just kind of went through this huge tree trunk, just like it was some kind of foam or styrofoam or something, where you squeeze it and your fingers just kind of collapse into this tree trunk. And then that's when I realized for sure, like, this whole structure is about to come crumbling down. And that didn't happen in a month. It didn't happen in 20 months, but over a few years, the compound effect of these termites reproducing and consuming literally destroyed this entire home, just trashed it. And so now, like, the home's gone. The entire thing was a waste. You couldn't go in and be like, oh man, boy, they got this whole bottom section, or they got this whole side of the house. We're gonna have to tear that all out and rebuild it. Because of the compound effect, the whole thing's gone. Now, this is where we can jump into instances where you've seen that, of like, maybe it happens in health or relationship or finances or business. And again, it can go positive or negative, right? So I don't have to give just negative accounts here. Maybe you just keep working. Well, in my instance, I read and read and read and read. I averaged, about a book a week for over 2 decades, just learning voraciously with curiosity and studying and researching and traveling all over the world and meeting people and interviewing people and just gleaning as much information and insight and wisdom as I possibly could. And that has just continued to stack and stack and stack and stack on itself, and build in a major way, where I've had many exponential results come from that, of all that reading and studying and learning. You're going, and for a while there, you're like, okay, I'm doing it because I love it. But I'm like, well, maybe it's not paying off that much. But then an opportunity comes. Right? An opportunity I had no idea was coming down the road. You get down there and somebody says, hey, we're looking for someone that can do this, or they start to notice, hey, you're doing this and doing that. I saw some of your videos and I saw your podcast, and I heard about your coaching, word of mouth, and man, we got this opportunity, and it all pays off, right? Exponentially starts going. And with coaching, that really happened once I really started leaning into coaching and knew that was just, man, part of my life's work and calling is to help men, mostly men. I coach some great women too, but mostly men, seriously level up in every aspect of their life. That just exploded. It just took off, and it was all word of mouth. I haven't really done any serious or consistent marketing for coaching. My schedule filled up and it just took off. That was a perfect example of an exponential result. It was helping people and doing it well and getting results. Bam, it just takes off to the top. So I want you to start examining today as we're doing this, and you may want to write some things down. If I know you're out biking or driving or working or doing whatever, just capture some ideas on your phone or in a notebook. Hopefully, I hope you have a journal with you. I keep a leather journal with me all the time. I actually have like 4 of them. Because you got different shades of leather, man. I'm a leather leather fan. I just love leather. So I've got different shades of leather journals and all kinds of stuff, leather bags. That's kind of my thing. I love to collect. My wife loves to tease me about that. My kids too. So keep a leather journal with you. Keep something with you where you can always capture some ideas. But I want you to go through today with me as we're talking through this and just examine each of the aspects of your life. Again, that's why we have the triple trifecta, right? For the Be the Man, it's the logo for the Be the Man. It's triple trifecta. It's all of those important areas of life where we have to be consistently examining them and seeing how is this playing out in each of those aspects of life. So in your fitness, not just physical fitness, right? It's your mental fitness. So it's mind, body, and spirit is the first trifecta. So in your mind, in your body, and your spirit, how is the law of exponential returns and results playing out in each of those areas? Mentally, the things you're doing day in and day out, how will that play out? You can see it linearly and like, oh, it's not that big of a difference. Although sometimes you notice, man, you start to feel it. You stop reading and just are consuming a bunch of garbage, man, you'll feel it right away. Same with your body, you can really feel it. But then when it starts to compound, so let's take physical, for example. When it starts to compound is when you start putting on weight, and then a lot of weight. And then all of a sudden, it seems like it happens like that. You're obese. Obese is 30% body mass index or more. And usually that's about 30 pounds. So if you're 30 pounds or more overweight, you're classified as obese. And you can get there quickly. And then once you hit obesity, right, everything else, every other system in your life starts getting negatively affected. So that's a perfect example of seeing the compound effect to the bottom side. So you're eating too much, you're not eating enough or enough healthy stuff. You're eating too much junk food, fast food, garbage, poor quality, massive portions. You're not exercising enough, and it starts to catch up to you. So you're starting to see that. And on the linear, it's starting to go down. You're like, I can tell I'm out of shape. I'm having a hard time going upstairs now. Man, I don't fit very well in the airplane seat anymore or bus or whatever. And you just start feeling the effect. But then once you hit that turning point where it starts becoming exponential, then, man, it has a massive negative effect on your heart. So much of the preventable heart disease, and the people are dying every day. Every day. It's about 10,000 people per day dying in the United States alone, mostly from preventable diseases. And the major one there is the heart disease related to obesity, right? And so the heart, and then Dr. Amen did a bunch of research and found that when you get obese and overweight, your brain actually starts to shrink. So you quite literally lose mental capacity and brain function by being overweight. It affects sexual function and your libido. And obviously, at a cellular level, it's much harder for your body to function, for blood flow, which is the life of your body and your health and a cellular level. So it just starts to compound. And pretty soon you can be in a world of trouble and pain and poor health, and your life can literally be on the line. I mean, you're losing years at that point, quickly losing years because of the strain on your body. And so that's a perfect example of an exponential result to the downside. So mind, body, spirit, the first trifecta, you go through each of those and say, well, what's happening? What am I doing? How could this play out over a 10, 20, 30, or 40-year period? So, take your life. And again, I'm 44 right now. My wife just recently celebrated her 43rd birthday. And this gets me thinking about it. Every time I have a birthday, every time the new year, the birthday, you start thinking, okay, what's happening here? Her father passed away of colon cancer at the age of 47. So we're pretty close to his age. And when they found out he had diverticulitis and then colon cancer, his surgeon said, look, it's because of the way you ate. You ate so poorly for so long. It just destroyed the insides. And then it was the compound exponential effect there that really just within short order ended his life. And we took that to heart, and we've seen it play out with people we know. So now, at 44 right now, at the time of this recording, I've had a good 20 years plus of adult life observing and paying attention. And I started paying attention early on, especially because my father-in-law got sick right when I met Rachel. And I've been watching how it plays out on a person's physical body. And so people I've known now for 2 decades, I've watched how their choices, their food choices, their exercise choices, their lifestyle choices have played out on their bodies. And 20 years is plenty to start seeing the exponential effect. And so we're seeing, and you are too. And I hope this drives this home today. The point of this episode is to drive this home. Like, it's not chance. It's not just random chance, not bad luck. It's the exponential compound effect of choices. And then it hit hard. And we step back, oh, poor people. Like, wow, man, everything's completely falling apart in their life. And maybe it's when your marriage hits 10 years or 15 years or 20 years. And then it just completely blows up into a really ugly divorce, or 10 to 15, 20 years of negligent parenting or absentee parenting because you were so into something else, you neglected that. And then what happens when that kid's in the late teens, early 20s? Bam, total failure to launch, an explosion. And now you're doing everything to try to save that kid's life. And it's the compound effect. And yes, I understand there are some instances of happenstance, but for the most part, it seems to me to be the law of exponential results and returns, right? It's the compound effect taking its course. And you're going along for so long, whether it's parenting or marriage or finances, whatever, and then it takes that turn. And man, it goes. When it goes, it goes. So as we're seeing this play out, I see it, played out in other people's lives. You're seeing it played out in other people's lives. And I hope you can kind of see the patterns down the correlation. You're seeing it played out in your own life. I want you to stop and just ask, like, what do you have to show today What do you have to show for it? Last week. What do you have to show for it? Last month. What do you have to show for it? Last quarter. So we just passed the end of the first quarter of 2022. What do you have to show for this quarter? What about the last year, the last 12 months? What about the last decade? How has the law of exponential returns and results played out in your life? How is it playing out? Can you see yourself in each of the aspects of life? Can you see where you are? Like if you could picture this exponential curve, one, they kind of run along together. There's two of them, the high and the low running along together and then making a big turn. Where are you there? If you could take a pin and just kind of stick it in there, where are you at? Let's go through the rest of the trifecta, right? So you have mind, body, spirit, then you have marriage, parenting, and family legacy. Each of those, man, all three of those especially play out so powerfully with this exponential curve. Marriage, it can go one way or the other. Parenting, we're seeing examples of this all over the place, all around us. You're seeing exponential movement on parenting and you're like, I don't know what happened. It's just like it's going along and then all of a sudden, bam. Well, it can be fantastic, right? Where you're doing the right things. The kid just takes off and it's just success after success and achievement, and happiness. Like, wow, this is amazing. Or total like tank in their lives. And family legacy, of course. And that plays out generationally. And talk about an exponential curve on that. That plays out for generations. And maybe you know some families that they have 2 or 3 generations to the upside or 2 or 3 generations to the downside. And it just keeps getting worse or it just keeps getting better. And then the other one is finances, right? Your income and your expenses and your investments. And all of those play out with the exponential curve. And so if you look at every area of your life and you can kind of visualize it and put a pin in it, where are you at in each of those areas on that curve? And for some of you, if you've lived long enough or you've been doing something long enough, either doing it well or doing it poorly, or just kind of coasting has a result, right? It's going to drop off. You might think, I'm just kind of coasting. Well, we're just drifting through life. The curve isn't too strong yet. It's like, because you're just cruising along this river, but you don't realize it's going to end up taking you over the Niagara, right? So where are you at? And now to, put a pin in it there and look at it. Is that aligned with previously set targets? And this one's a powerful exercise because you might notice where you're at and say, I'm kind of trending this way or trending that way. Is that aligned with previously set targets? If you said, look, this is where I want to go. What, 10 years ago, did you set goals? 20 years ago, did you set goals? I hope you did. I'm guessing you did. Even if you were in your teens. I set a bunch of goals in my late teens, and then I set a bunch more in my early 20s. So now I'm 20 years off, 2 decades off from the goals I set in my early 20s, individual goals and family goals. And then I set goals with Rachel. We were just starting our family. And not only have we achieved those goals, we've blown past them. Now there's a few we set that we didn't reach. And we look back and say, yeah, well, of course we didn't reach those because we didn't do the things that required to do that. But we have set others and achieved them and blown far past them. In fact, in some of those things, this is where the exponential law there plays in. You end up surpassing some of your goals and dreams way beyond what you thought possible. I mean, we had false ceilings above us because we'd both grown up poor and ignorant. And man, we just thought, wow, if we can do that, amazing. Wow, that'd be a dream life. And we've blown past that. We've done things we never even allowed ourselves to dream of. That is also the result of the exponential curve. So just have an honest assessment. Wherever you're at in your journey, if you've had goals and targets kind of laid out for 10 years or 20 years or 15 years, wherever you're at, and maybe some of you 30 years, look at them and say, are you aligned? What do you have to show for the last 3 months, the last 3 years, the last 3 decades? Are you aligned with those targets that you set 6 months ago or 6 years ago? And sometimes you can sense it, you can see it, you can feel the divergence from the path or the pace. Or you can feel the pace slow way down or the pace pick up, and both positive or negative. And then as you're doing it, again, the point here is to get an honest assessment, to learn from the past, to learn from this exponential curve, to look at your life and be like, yeah, man, that caught up to me. Maybe on the negative side. Maybe you've had some things just really fall apart on you. And you realize, yep, that caught up to me. And when it caught up, it went. That's that exponential effect. But maybe it's the upside. You're like, man, I've been working, I've been learning, I've been investing in my marriage, I'm investing in my kids, and I'm seeing the results. And then take that lesson, that kind of, again, positive or negative, and I hope you learn from both sides, and I hope you have results on both sides, because you learn so much from it. But now I want you to look 10 or 20 years or 30 years ahead. So where will you be in 10 or 20 years from now? And that will be determined by the law of exponential results. Your attitude. And I recently met some older people, and man, the attitude was so negative and so bitter, so crusty, so jaded, so just cranky and ornery. And like that, there's an exponential effect. Now you're constantly bothered by little things. What happens over 10 or 20 years? You just become a bitter, unpleasant person. Your habits, your mindset, your resentment. So if you have a resentment, right, that's just kind of you're harboring there, and maybe you're a pretty agreeable person, and you know you go along to get along, but you feel a little bit of resentment for it, or you don't speak up, you don't do the things you want to do, you kind of keep setting aside stuff you really want to do, like, you know, for some story you tell yourself about, oh, I got to be responsible, or oh no, you know, you don't get to do that, or life's just hard, you just endure it, and you know, it's not for fun, or whatever the story is, whatever the reason is, you feel these resentments building. Well, what happens after 10 years, 20 years of little resentments? Those turn into monsters. If you resent your spouse or your children or a coworker, a boss, or the industry you work in, or your neighborhood or your church group or whatever, you resent that just a little bit here and there, but you do it now for 10, 20, 30 years. Oh man, when the exponential law hits that one, it's going to be a monster. And you got to check that stuff. What about for generational things like we saw? You've seen this played out. And if not, I want you to look at it. I want you to pause right now, and I want you to look at your parents and your grandparents and your great grandparents and say, where has this played out? Where has this law of exponential results played out for generations in my family line? And is it something amazing that I want to keep going, or is it something horrendous that I need to stop now and turn the opposite direction and get on the other higher exponential curve, so that my kids and my grandkids and my great grandkids have the exponential results to the upside instead of to the downside? Because ultimately, gentlemen, we pay for it now, or we pay a much higher price later. You don't want to buy healthy food. You don't want to invest in yourself or your relationships. You don't want to get up early. You don't want to study. You don't want to work out. You don't feel like it, right? But then you end up paying for it dearly with ruined health and ruined relationships and ruined opportunities and honestly, a ruined life. So in the end, you will either pay for it in discipline or pay for it in disaster. And man, when you put in the small price of discipline, and it is a small price compared to the price of disaster, you put in the small price of discipline, and then you get these gigantic rewards in return. I remember it really sparked for me. This was either in my late teens or early 20s. I heard somebody say, like, look, what's the potential of an app? What's the potential in an apple? And I was like, well, it's got seeds in it. You can plant a tree. And so they're like, yeah, there you go. The potential of an apple seed is an apple tree. But that's not quite true. It's not enough, because that one tree then will produce, for years, produce thousands of seeds. And then each of those seeds will produce trees that will produce thousands of seeds. And so it's this exponential return. What's the potential in one seed? Well, it ends up being infinite ultimately, doesn't it? And that can play out in ways in our lives as well. The potential to the upside with this exponential law of, like, you do good things, do the things that just work across the whole triple trifecta, and let the exponential law work in your favor. And the results can become infinite through generations of time, and man, maybe even eternity, right? And all these good things. That's how I want to live. Whew. So one thing I want to just hit hard is our thinking, and particularly how thinking affects the body. We don't often think about this enough, and especially how this builds up over time, right? So we might think, well, yeah, okay, obviously if I eat junk food and I don't exercise, that's going to have a negative effect on my body. But I want to point out something here that's not always obvious: how your thinking affects your body, literally affects your body negatively. I recently was reading about the study done, I think it was in 2013. And if I remember right, the details, it was by researchers from the University of Ohio. And they found that dwelling on negative things, negative thinking, like just whether it's from the past or in the moment, whatever, just dwelling on negativity, had increased inflammation in the body. So think about that. Dwelling on negative things actually increased inflammation in the body. Now, if you've studied health at a cellular level, or how disease spreads and grows, it's ultimately, when it comes down to it, it's all around inflammation. Inflammation is serious trouble in the body. And it's not like, oh man, my wrist is all swollen because I sprained it. You can't really perceive a lot of the inflammation that's happening at a cellular level. But inflammation just invites disease. It leads to disease, which again leads to heart disease and cancers and et cetera, et cetera. And just that's one example. The dwelling on negative things, and let's say you do it chronically, you get into this habit of negative thinking. And then we can get into how your body actually gets addicted, physically addicted to the emotions, because the emotion releases a chemical that's related to that negativity, right? So cortisol or something like that. And then the body gets addicted to that. And so you get addicted to negative emotions. It's crazy. And so it perpetuates. But let's say you get on this habit and addiction to negative thinking and dwelling on negative things, and you do that for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. And that negative thinking, as proved by this research, causes inflammation in your body. Well, what's going to be the exponential result of a body at a cellular level that is struggling with inflammation for 10 or 20 or 30 years? Oh, you're going to feel it. You are going to feel it. And it's going to have a major negative effect. The same is true of anger. I've talked about this before. I shared this because it just fascinates me. You get really angry, and it literally suppresses your immune system from anywhere to 40 minutes to 2 hours just by getting angry once. What if you're getting angry all the time? What if you're perpetually just bitter and angry, ticked off? You get mad at every little thing. You're yelling at your kids and your spouse and traffic and what the world's gone crazy, and you're just mad. Man, it's suppressing your immune system. So let's just take that one example and apply it to the law of the exponential results. You go over 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years of a suppressed immune system, then you're going to be sick all the time. And it'll break down your body, and it'll compound, right? And then you're taking years off your life and quality of life and the quality of your health. But it's true of stress, right? Which is releasing cortisol, and cortisol will man, tank your immune system and your body and your health. And again, apply it to that law of exponential results. If you're swimming in cortisol for 5, 10, 20, 50 years, man, it's going to have a major, major effect on your body. Worry does it. Fear does it, right? It all, and it suppresses clear thinking, right? Because we're supposed to, it was designed in the body for momentary survival, right? Like, oh, I got to step in and survive this moment. But some of us have attached to stress, worry, fear, anger chronically, perpetually. And it's taking its toll, especially in the compound effect and the exponential results in our bodies. So, and cortisol levels, of course, are linked heavily to aging, early aging, disease, anxiety, stress, depression, cancer, heart disease, dementia, on and on. It's having an effect. So, but take it to the upside, right? Do the upside, like healthy thinking and forgiving and staying relaxed and meditating and being peaceful and doing things that make you feel happy and joyful and relaxed, and setting up these habits and routines and rituals to just feel good, and eating good all the time, and moving your body and getting good sleep, and investing in your marriage, investing in your relationship. Every week we take one of our kids out on a date. So it's just me and Rachel and one kid. And except we take the two little ones. Our littlest ones are 8 and 5. We take them together. And last night it was their turn. So we went to this little Thai restaurant and just sitting with them. And it's just adorable, man. They love it. And they're just talk. And they're there and they're just kind of basking in the attention and time with mom and dad. And Rachel and I love connecting with them because the kids talk and we get to hear what they're doing, and we're investing in the relationship with them. It's incredible, right? And that pays off. You just keep doing that week after week after week. What happens if the whole time they're in your home, you're giving them attention and supporting them and cheering them on and listening to them and learning from them and giving them the love and the mentoring that they need? Man, it pays off massively to the upside. So, and again, got to drive this home. Working on your important things every once in a while just won't cut it. It won't. It's like if you work out every once in a while, or you eat well every once in a while, or you invest in your relationship every once in a while, or you check your finances every once in a while, or you improve your skills every once in a while. If you're at a job, you're in a career for 40 years and you work on a skill every 3 to 5 years, it's almost like you're on this downhill slope and there's a little blurp there, and then it just keeps going back down, blurp, and you're heading over the waterfall. Or if you're consistently hitting those good things, man, you're setting yourself up for infinite success and happiness and great results. So, gentlemen, go through each part of your life. Examine it carefully. Talk about it with your wife and your kids. Teach this principle to kids. Share it. You guys share this with colleagues and friends and family members. Share this episode. You can take a screenshot of it right now and share it on social media. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast. You can grab this video. You can subscribe to the YouTube channel or share the video or video clips and use it to teach your kids, your families, your teams, whatever it is. Get this idea and this concept just ingrained in your mind and in your heart and your life, so that you realize this matters so much, and it will pay off massively, even if for a long time it seems to not have an effect. Oh, it will. And I think most of you listening to this have lived long enough to see it play out in your own life and other people's lives. But we cannot dismiss this. We cannot assume that it's not going to compound one way or the other, because it always does. And ultimately, this is really why I built the masterclass and the tribe, so we could get a great group of men together to learn about and practice and implement the proven tools and strategy and the training, so that in every area of our life, we are on the upper line, setting ourselves up for exponential success and joy and happiness and this extraordinary life we all long to live as our very best selves. Love you, fellas. Thanks for being here. Thanks for listening. Thanks for being great men. Thanks for caring. Let's get our lives, all of our lives, every aspect of our lives up on that upper line towards exponential success and happiness. Be the man.